The reports no one wanted to read. December 12, 1943, Zossen, south of Berlin. Snow presses against the windows of the underground command complex as the lights hum softly above rows of desks. Deep beneath the forest floor, inside the nerve center of the German war effort, Major Hans Meyer, a logistics officer attached to the planning staff of the Oberkommando der Wehrmacht, flips through a folder stamped Geheime Kommandosache, top secret. The pages are not battle reports. There are no maps marked with arrows or heroic last stands circled in red pencil. Instead, the documents are filled with numbers, columns, tables, shipping manifests, production schedules. Meyer pauses, rubs his eyes, and starts again from the beginning. Outside this bunker, Germany is still fighting on multiple fronts. On the Eastern Front, divisions are locked in brutal winter combat against the Red Army. In Italy, German troops dig in along defensive lines, bleeding slowly but stubbornly. On paper, the Reich still commands millions of men under arms. Yet here, in the quiet claustrophobia of the command center, a different war is unfolding, one fought with ledgers instead of rifles. The report Meyer is reading comes from Abwehr analysts stationed in occupied France and neutral Switzerland. It lists something unsettling. Allied landing craft numbers in British ports, not estimates, counts. New arrivals week after week. Even as U-boats claim victories in the Atlantic, the total number of enemy vessels does not decline. It increases. Meyer turns another page. Fuel consumption projections for Allied armored units in England, rail capacity calculations, aircraft sortie replacement ratios. Every chart tells the same story. Losses are being absorbed, not recovered from, absorbed. A colonel standing nearby breaks the silence. They must be bluffing, he mutters. No nation can sustain this pace. But Meyer has already checked the math, twice. The idea that America was inefficient, slow, and politically divided had been comforting. It had shaped German strategic thinking since before the war. The United States, in this worldview, was rich but soft, powerful but clumsy, dangerous only if given time. Now time itself seemed to be working against Germany. Across the Atlantic, American shipyards were launching cargo vessels faster than German intelligence could revise its estimates. A Liberty ship sunk in October was replaced by November, sometimes by 2. Aircraft destroyed over Germany were being replaced not in months, but in weeks. The reports do not speak in metaphors, they speak in ratios. 1 Panzer destroyed, 3 replacements available, 1 bomber squadron lost, 2 already in training. Meyer closes the folder and exhales slowly. The most disturbing realization is not that Germany is losing battles. That has happened before. In 1918, Germany lost battles and still fought on. The problem now is that the enemy does not seem to feel the losses at all. In early meetings that winter, senior officers begin to notice a shift in language. Briefings no longer focus on enemy divisions, but on enemy flows. Flow of steel, flow of fuel, flow of men through training depots, flow of aircraft from factories to airfields to the skies over Europe. A general taps a pencil against a map of Normandy and asks a question no one had voiced out loud until now. What happens, he says, if we destroy everything that lands and more just keeps coming? No one answers. By January 1944, additional memoranda circulate. Some are quietly removed from circulation, others are marked overly pessimistic. A few are forwarded upward, where they vanish into filing cabinets. But the pattern is undeniable. German reconnaissance flights report port facilities in southern England operating day and night. Allied engineers repair bomb damage faster than expected. Rail yards return to service with astonishing speed. Bombing delays shipments but does not stop them. The war Germany is fighting is no longer against an army that can be defeated by encirclement or attrition in the traditional sense. It is against a mechanism, one that converts civilian industry into military power with terrifying efficiency. Meyer writes a note in the margin of one report. It is never officially logged. We are not exhausting them, he writes. We are feeding their system. That winter, no announcement is made. No speech acknowledges the shift. Publicly, the Reich still promises victory through willpower and sacrifice. But privately, within rooms like this one beneath Zossen, something fundamental has changed. For the first time, German command is beginning to understand that even perfect tactics may no longer matter. Because tactics fight armies, and Germany, whether it realizes it fully or not, is now fighting something else entirely. The enemy that replaced itself. February 3, 1944, Schweinfurt, Germany. The air raid sirens begin their wail just after noon. On the factory floor below, workers scatter toward shelters as American bombers appear in the winter sky, dark specks growing larger by the second. For the officers of the Luftwaffe stationed nearby, the scene is grimly familiar. They have fought this battle before. They have shot down bombers before. But something is different now. Oberstleutnant Karl-Heinz Vogel, an air defense liaison officer, watches the raid unfold through binoculars. Flak bursts punch black scars into the clouds. A B-17 spirals downward, engines aflame. Another breaks formation and vanishes into the haze. For a brief moment, there is satisfaction, losses inflicted, enemy punished. Then Vogel lowers his binoculars and glances at a report handed to him moments earlier. It lists American bomber production figures for January. The numbers do not align with what he is seeing in the sky. Even as aircraft fall, more seem to take their place. Formations remain tight. The stream does not thin. In fact, by the time the bombers turn for home, Vogel realizes something deeply unsettling. Tomorrow's raid may be larger. This is not how wars are supposed to work. For generations, German military doctrine had been built on decisive engagements. Destroy enough aircraft, and the enemy's air arm weakens. Kill enough tanks, and the armored spear breaks. But now, destruction itself appears insufficient. Behind the bombers are factories untouched by the bombs falling on Germany. Behind the factories are raw materials flowing in uninterrupted. Behind those flows are oceans controlled by Allied navies, and behind all of it is time. By early 1944, German analysts quietly admit that the Allied air campaign is no longer just an offensive, it is a demonstration. Every raid proves not only that the Allies can strike Germany, but that they can afford to keep striking indefinitely. In staff meetings, words like Verschleißkrieg, war of attrition, are spoken with unease. Attrition had once favored Germany, now it threatens to consume it. A memorandum from the Armaments Ministry crosses multiple desks. It compares German aircraft output to American figures. The conclusion is devastating. Even if Germany increased production by 30%, it would still fall behind. Fuel shortages, skilled labor losses, and constant bombing have turned German factories into bottlenecks. Meanwhile, American plants operate beyond the reach of German bombers, with standardized parts, interchangeable crews, and assembly lines that never truly stop. The realization spreads quietly but relentlessly. This is not an enemy whose strength can be reduced to zero. This is an enemy whose baseline strength is higher than Germany's maximum effort. At the same time, reports from France grow more alarming. Rail lines bombed by Allied aircraft are repaired in days. Bridges destroyed by German demolition teams are replaced by prefabricated spans shipped from England. Entire ports damaged by Luftwaffe raids resume operations before follow-up strikes can be planned. German commanders begin to notice a pattern. Every German success creates a temporary problem for the Allies, but a permanent strain for Germany. Each sortie flown costs fuel that cannot be replaced. Each experienced pilot lost cannot be easily trained again. Each destroyed factory machine takes months to repair. The Allies, by contrast, treat loss as a calculation. If a bridge falls, another is delivered. If a ship sinks, 2 more launch. If a division bleeds, replacements are already en route. One staff officer later recalls a chilling remark made during a closed-door briefing in March 1944. "We are not fighting their soldiers," the officer said. "We are fighting their calendar." As spring approaches, intelligence estimates grow darker. Allied troop concentrations in Britain swell beyond previous projections. The number of landing craft alone suggests an invasion on a scale that defies precedent. Even if Germany repels the first wave, planners privately wonder how many waves will follow, and whether stopping them is even possible. For the first time since the war began, the question inside German command is no longer how to win. It is whether winning is still a meaningful concept in a war where the enemy replaces itself faster than it can be destroyed. Normandy and the collapse of old assumptions. June 7, 1944. La Roche-Guyon, France. The map room is thick with cigarette smoke and silence. The day after the landings, Field Marshal Erwin Rommel stands over a massive situation map pinned with colored flags. Red markers denote German units. Blue pins, too many of them already, mark Allied beachheads stretching across Normandy. Rommel listens as staff officers deliver their reports. Some speak confidently, insisting the invasion can still be thrown back. German armor, they argue, has counterattacked before. The Atlantic Wall, though breached, is not yet broken everywhere. The Allies are vulnerable, crowded on beaches, dependent on supply from the sea. Rommel does not interrupt. He has seen these assumptions before. He believed some of them himself. But what troubles him is not the size of the landings. It is their behavior. The Allied forces do not hesitate. They do not pause to consolidate in the way German doctrine expects. Engineers land with the first waves. Within hours, roads are cleared, obstacles removed, traffic flowing. Vehicles move inland, not in chaotic columns, but in regulated streams, guided by military police, timed to the minute. Rommel studies reports from aerial reconnaissance. German pilots note something unusual. Allied units appear indifferent to losses. Tanks destroyed on the beaches are simply pushed aside. Wrecked landing craft are abandoned without ceremony. The flow inland continues uninterrupted. This is not recklessness, it is confidence. By June 10th, German counterattacks begin to stall, not because of lack of courage or tactical skill, but because of supply. Fuel shortages delay armored movements. Ammunition deliveries fall behind schedule. Communications break down under constant Allied air attack. The Allies, by contrast, seem immune to disruption. Artificial harbors, mulberries, appear off the coast, unloading thousands of tons of supplies daily. Fuel pipelines are laid under the channel. Temporary solutions become permanent almost overnight. A German operations officer writes in his diary, "They have planned not for success, but for failure, and made failure survivable." As days pass, the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Every German success is localized and temporary. Every Allied success compounds itself. Losses do not slow the advance. They are absorbed into it. Rommel requests additional armored reserves. The response from Berlin is hesitant, delayed, fragmented. Hitler himself interferes, holding units back for counterattacks that never materialize. The system on the German side, centralized, rigid, dependent on individual decisions, begins to choke under its own weight. Meanwhile, the Allied system thrives on decentralization. Junior officers improvise within a structure designed to support improvisation. Supplies arrive regardless of weather, resistance, or damage. Reinforcements are already scheduled before casualties are fully counted. One German divisional commander sums it up in a captured message later recovered by Allied intelligence. They fight as if the battle is only one step in a process we cannot interrupt. By late June, German commanders begin to speak openly, if only among themselves, that Normandy cannot be sealed off. Not because the troops are insufficient, but because the tempo of Allied operations exceeds Germany's ability to respond. This is when the deeper realization sets in. The invasion is not a gamble. It is an output. Normandy is not a battlefield chosen for tactical brilliance alone. It is the point where an entire Allied system, industrial, logistical, scientific, and human, has decided to make landfall. And once ashore, that system does not pause. It does not regroup. It does not wait for permission. It advances because it was designed to. As July approaches and the hedgerows fill with fire and blood, German command begins to grasp a truth that no amount of battlefield valor can erase. They are no longer fighting to stop an army. They are fighting to slow down a process that was set in motion years ago and is now unstoppable. The system reveals itself, July 18, 1944, somewhere outside Saint-Lô, Normandy. The hedgerows shake as American artillery fires in rolling waves. The ground trembles, not from a single barrage, but from a sustained rhythm that seems almost mechanical. To German infantry crouched in foxholes, it feels less like a battle and more like standing in front of an advancing machine. Hauptmann Friedrich Keller, a veteran of Poland, France, and Russia, presses his helmet down as dirt rains over his position. He has survived encirclements before. He has held lines against superior numbers. But this is different. There is no pause. When the shelling lifts, American infantry advances immediately. Tanks follow close behind. Engineers are already clearing paths through minefields Keller knows were laid only days ago. Overhead, fighter bombers circle with impunity, striking anything that moves. Keller radios for artillery support. The response comes back clipped and grim. Limited ammunition, fire missions delayed. By mid-1944, that word has become lethal. German artillery units fire sparingly now, conserving shells that cannot be replaced quickly enough. Fuel rations limit maneuver. Even when orders are clear, execution falters, not because of fear or incompetence, but because the German system is grinding down under sustained pressure. Across the lines, the Allied system is accelerating. American after-action reports note something extraordinary. Units destroyed in combat are being reconstituted in weeks, sometimes days. Replacement troops arrive already familiar with standardized equipment. Spare parts fit across vehicles. Ammunition calibers are consistent. Procedures are uniform. Every component connects seamlessly. Captured German officers begin to notice that Allied soldiers speak not of individual battles, but of schedules, supply windows, rotations. Objectives measured not in kilometers gained, but in throughput maintained. One interrogated officer later recalls an unsettling exchange with an American logistics captain. "This operation," the American said casually, "is ahead of schedule." The phrase sticks. Back in Germany, the reports from Normandy reach the highest levels. They are no longer optimistic. They are not even defensive. They are diagnostic. A senior staff memo circulates in August stating that German forces are now reacting to Allied initiatives rather than shaping the battlefield. More tellingly, it notes that every German countermeasure is isolated, while Allied actions reinforce one another. Air power supports ground movement. Ground movement secures ports. Ports increase supply flow. Supply flow expands air operations. A closed loop. Attempts to break it fail repeatedly. Bombing rail hubs delays shipments, but redundancy absorbs the damage. Attacking supply dumps destroys stockpiles, but replacements arrive faster than they can be targeted. Killing soldiers creates vacancies already filled. The system does not improvise under pressure. It was built for pressure. One German general, speaking privately after the war, describes the moment of clarity. "We were fighting men who expected to lose equipment and designed everything around replacing it. We designed everything around not losing it at all." By late summer 1944, the collapse in France becomes inevitable. German units retreat not because they are defeated tactically, but because their support structures no longer exist. Roads clog with abandoned vehicles. Fuel runs dry. Communication lines snap under constant attack. The Allies pursue relentlessly, not recklessly, but methodically. Every kilometer gained feeds the system further. New airfields are built almost as soon as territory is taken. New depots appear behind the lines. New divisions enter combat without the exhaustion that once plagued advancing armies. The war has transformed. It is no longer a contest of generals maneuvering formations. It is a test of whether any single nation can resist an industrialized process that converts time into victory. And Germany, bleeding on every front, begins to understand something far more terrifying than defeat. There is no decisive battle left to win, only delay. The last illusion of decision. December 16, 1944, the Ardennes Forest, Belgium. Snow blankets the pine trees as German artillery erupts without warning. In the freezing darkness, panzer columns surge forward along narrow forest roads. Engines roar, orders crackle over radios. For the first time in months, German forces have achieved surprise. This is it. At least, that is how it is presented. The offensive has been planned in secrecy, fuel hoarded, units stripped from quieter fronts. Commanders briefed on a bold objective: split the Allied lines, seize Antwerp, and force a negotiated peace before the system can respond. For a brief moment, it almost works. American units are caught off guard, road junctions fall, prisoners are taken. Headlines in Berlin speak of a turning point. Some officers allow themselves to believe that the war has re-entered familiar territory, a decisive operation, a gamble that could reset the balance. But beneath the snow and chaos, the same pattern quietly reasserts itself. Within days, Allied command absorbs the shock, units reroute. Air power, grounded by weather, returns the moment the skies clear. Fuel shortages that paralyze German spearheads do not afflict their opponents. Damaged bridges are bypassed. New supply lines appear as if conjured. What German planners had hoped would shatter the Allied system instead reveals its resilience. At Battle of the Bulge, American divisions bend, but they do not break. Losses are heavy, but replacements arrive. Ammunition flows. Command adapts without waiting for perfect information. A German staff officer later writes, "We attacked their front. We never touched what sustained it." As the offensive stalls, the illusion collapses. Panzer units sit immobilized for lack of fuel, while Allied aircraft roam freely overhead. Every kilometer gained now becomes a liability, another stretch of road to supply without the means to do so. By January 1945, the last reserves are gone. Back in Germany, the tone of internal communications changes again. There is no longer talk of victory or even reversal, only of endurance. of buying time, of delaying the inevitable long enough to preserve something, anything. Yet even delay proves elusive. The Allied system, once fully engaged, does not slow down, it accelerates. Factories continue to produce. Training camps continue to cycle men forward. Logistics plans drafted months earlier unfold regardless of German intentions. The front lines move east, not in leaps, but in steady, relentless increments. The final realization settles in among what remains of German command. There will be no decisive battle, no brilliant maneuver, no last stroke of genius. The war has become something colder and more impersonal than anyone imagined in 1939. It is no longer decided by courage, ideology, or even strategy alone. It is decided by systems. And Germany is trapped inside one it can no longer sustain, while facing an enemy whose entire war effort was designed to survive mistakes, absorb losses, and continue forward regardless of resistance. As the winter of 1945 deepens, the understanding becomes universal but unspoken. The outcome was not sealed at Normandy, nor at the Ardennes. It was sealed years earlier, when one side built a war to be won by process, and the other built one that could not afford to fail.